Well, I always felt that The Big Chill was a comedy of manners. Every generation goes through periods of innocence and a loss of innocence and accommodation and compromise.
Last time I spoke with Alex, we had a fight. I yelled at him.
That's probably why he killed himself.
I was catching these people at a certain moment in that journey.
What was the argument about?
I told him he was wasting his life.
And I always thought that they were a little foolish. As much as I loved them and admired them, I felt that they were foolish in the sense that they were driven by the same kind of shallow ambition and lusts and desires that I am every day. And I find myself foolish. So I find that funny.
You all right?
Yeah. I'm a little disappointed, though. I wanted to ride up there. I've always wanted to ride in a limo.
I think that life is a comedy, and I think life can be tragic at moments, and there is no differentiation many times. One moment can be very sad, another moment sublimely absurd.
You know, you'd never get a crowd this big at my funeral.
Oh, Karen, come on, I'll come, and, I'll bring a date.
It is an almost unheard of luxury to be able to shoot in continuity. The thing that makes it possible is when you have a simple location. And for the most part, the entire picture takes place at and around the house. We could move around quite freely in the house and keep the movie as much in continuity as possible, and hopefully the actors would have the same kind of progressive experience of that weekend, except over 53 days as they would have had in those 3 days.
Larry Kasdan wanted us all there all the time, even if we weren't filming. If somebody else, if it was a two-person scene between Mary Kay Place and Kevin Kline, Larry still wanted everybody around. And sometimes that was frustrating because we'd want to go off and, do something for the day or whatever. But his feeling was you never knew who might pop up in the background of this house. He might want to see my character, Karen, walk past the door while Mary Kay and Bill Hurt are having their talking scene.
And I think that's part of the reasons why the scenes were so alive, is because we were always considered equally alive all the time. And you didn't just fly in and do your scene. You were part of the play all the time. You were part of it, of the life.
And we all came to enjoy being around anyway, because we're all kind of in this one house, and we kind of were pulling with each other and for each other.
There was a tremendous sense of support and of life going on in that house, which was the way it would have been that weekend. There would be people in all the rooms, stuff going on all the time. If you were chatting to someone down in the living room, you'd still have to be very conscious of the fact that people would be upstairs or in the kitchen or whatever. So I think having us around all the time really gave a great sense of camaraderie and also a great sense of tension in a way.
There was this wonderful staircase in that house, and it's a very old house. And we discovered that there was a certain area at the bottom of the stairs where the sound wouldn't record. It's like a dead space. Also, we heard footsteps, and you felt sometimes a presence or like a slight wind. And I really think it was a ghost.
Oh, shit!
The house was in fact haunted. We had one incident that I found very interesting because, there were all these wonderful scrapbooks about the history of this house and how in the Civil War it had been a hospital, and then later it had been bed and breakfasts and sort of, what had happened throughout the years. So one night, I think we're shooting at that dinner table scene. It's late at night, and it's like 3 in the morning, and there was some kind of crash. There's 3 floors up on the 3rd floor, and the sound man was flipped out, and he had picked up some ghost voice or something. And of course, in the scrapbooks it had said throughout the years that there had always been these ghost noises and cries and, all these different things. So we all huddled around the sound truck and listened, and it was scary and kind of exciting.
All right, I'll tell you one thing I do want.
Those meals, I remember, and this is my ignorance in movies, but I remember going up to Larry, I don't know if you all remember this, and being really upset because of the pattern on our china. I said, my character would never have this china. She just wouldn't. You know, I thought it was really important, and he was so patient. He was so wonderful because he said, "I understand, and we'll see what we can do." And then, of course, you never see the pattern on the china. I mean, you just don't. I mean, he knew that, but he took me, you know, seriously, and he listened to my distress. And only later I realized, because I was still so new to movies.
I don't know. I'd hate to think that it was all just fashion.
What?
Our commitment.
We had 3 to 4 of these dinner scenes we shot, and they are maddening. You do the master, but it's a bunch of people sitting around a table. Then you got to get in, you have to do twos or singles all the way around, and it's the entire day.
He had 8 principals. In some of those scenes where we all are sitting in a room and talking, each one of us had our close-up, so everybody had to, like, you know, sit around for everyone else's close-up.
Since the whole movie is about people's reactions to what's being said, not necessarily what they're saying, but the other people's reaction, you had to cover everybody, and more than once, actually, just to keep up the visual variety throughout the entire scene, and I found that quite daunting.
It's a maddening thing for actors and the script girl and whatnot to remember exactly where you are in the scene. For the prop guys, it's just horrific. I mean, they keep recooking meals and heating stuff up and repouring liquids and bringing it on and off and putting it in and out, and it's just it's a long, hard day for those guys.
And it could easily have deteriorated into something horrible. But, you know, I mean, when I think about it, I have nothing but huge amount of love and gratitude for the experience that I had in The Big Chill, and it comes down from the director.
There was an interesting thing that I observed while we were shooting, and this had never happened before. Larry literally had a stopwatch. He had the script supervisor time the scenes, and he knew how long each scene should take to film, and if we did it slower than that, then he had us do another take, because he had experienced having to cut scenes that mattered to him from an earlier film because the film was too long. And so he was very clear that we were to stay within that time frame and pick up the pace if we had done it in a slower, more languid version. So it was just fascinating to me. I had never worked like that, but I thought this is great because it kind of imposed this discipline on the scene.